welcome to 5Ps in a Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Willie Wilson, and you and I will interact about such topics which are pertinent and maybe either personal or public, and are of a political and or problematic nature. So what I'm about to demonstrate is an example of the type of propaganda that is floating around by people who, I guess, are willing to believe enough in something to want to share it with other people, but they're really propagandizing and inflaming an otherwise rational position, or what should otherwise be a rational position. Here's an example, an 8-minute video that was out there floating around. I mean, it's got...
I'm going to level with you now. Anyone who has escaped
So there's a Chinese tank.
Russia, Cuba, or North Korea can see the writing on the wall.
Berlin Wall.
In 1963, the communist goals to overthrow the United States were entered
Neatly
into the
numbered.
congressional record. They stated, capture one or both of the political parties, infiltrate the press, gain control of key positions in radio, TV, and motion picture.
So here's what he's stating that the communists have been working to infiltrate the United States for however long he said. He quotes it later on, since the 50s at least. Well, listen, espionage is very complex. It isn't just China. It's Russia, it's United States, it's Germany, it's Poland. I mean, come on, okay. But so let's just entertain the idea that give China its due. It's one of the oldest civilizations in the history of mankind. I mean, I remember seeing in the Beijing Olympics a reporter discussing the family business, a restaurant that had been in the family at that time for over 800 years. You'd think about that for a second. How long has the United States been a country? And this restaurant in Beijing has been in the family for 800 years. Okay, so anyway, my point is that, yes, it's real important that we do pay attention to China diplomatically, strategically, and of course militarily. We've got to know that they are one of the strong kids out there, as it were. So what this person in this video is expressing is that the communist, whatever the doctrination process involves these very specific rules. That number 15 is capture one or both of the political parties. Well, very vague. What do you mean capture? I envision, Elmer Fudd with a net running around. I don't even know what they mean by that. Number 20, infiltrate the press. Well, guess what? Everybody from, there are millionaires, billionaires, whole countries infiltrating presses. So I don't need, another vague way to approach the issue. And then here's number 21, the one that, very important by the sounds of the tone of the narrator here, gain control of key positions. Okay, these key positions in radio, TV, and motion pictures. Listen, it's been common knowledge for a while that just a handful of people own all communications. So I don't even know the status of those elite people who own all communication. What I can tell you, as a regular old layman and consumer of these goods, I don't even understand what key positions would be in radio, TV, and motion pictures, or how you would even gain control. So if that's above my realm anyway, why would I don't see any advantage in trying to formulate strategy for it. Let's continue.
After this election, it's pretty clear these goals have been achieved.
Whoa. Now this guy just said it's pretty clear that these goals have been achieved based on this election. Admittedly, I haven't watched any of his other videos. This is the first time I've ever seen one of his videos. I assume he's outlined it or specified it somewhere before. But after this video, I will waste no more time with this guy. So anyway, let's continue.
And the more you look into it, the more you see that all roads...
I'll also want to point out, listen to the background music throughout. Right now, it's very swelling, very emotionally uplifting. Pay attention.
...to China, or more specifically the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP.
And then it
Yes,
stops.
It owns a massive chunk of Hollywood, including AMC theaters and legendary film studios. You got it, the CCP.
Okay, so listen, here's what he's trying to point out, that the CCP now, we've got it labeled as, the Communist China Party, Communist Party of China. We get it, their government, right? He says owns Hollywood, or it contributes millions to Hollywood, is what he said. So they're not alone. I mean, he's singling them out. He's taking this molehill, making a mountain out of it. But the scary talk, really, that doesn't make them significant or the only ones. So pay attention. There's a couple more examples he's going to parade around that are really not true, or at the very least, an extreme false representation of the truth. Pay attention. And again, listen to the background music.
Guess who pays millions of dollars to mainstream newspapers, including the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times,
I don't
to
know.
publish their propaganda? The CCP.
The CCP. The new boogeyman of the extreme right radicals.
And guess who's given the Biden family billions of...
Okay, liar. I want to point out there's no evidence. The guy is so far just been showing lots of propaganda, flashy videos, and playing some snazzy music to emphasize the glamorous words that he's using that are not telling us where to find the information or where to flesh it out ourselves. I assure you that Scranton, Pennsylvania, Joe Biden, his family, was not given billions by anybody, let alone the CCP. Scary stuff, folks. That isn't real. It's a small molehill that propagandizes into a mountain. I'm so glad to have this example. If you're paying attention, you'll see what I'm talking about. So let's continue. He's again saying how much the CCP has, the billions and trillions and gazillions they've given to just Biden, Come on.
Of dollars. Yes, the CCP. Now do you see why Biden is the media's darling?
Okay, first of all, I didn't know. I had no idea Biden was media's darling. Come on, man. I'm just going to leave it at that. That's some kind of ridiculous statement.
On the contrary, who's been the biggest thorn in the CCP's side?
Okay, again, listen to the background music. He's starting to roll into his several second presentation of the Emperor with no clothes we're familiar with here. So just pay attention to how this progresses.
Who stood up to their abusive trade policies and slapped them with billions of dollars in tariffs? Who dismantled their stranglehold on manufacturing and brought American factories and jobs back home?
Okay. Well, hang on. Okay, first of all, I will say this. I would love to have been able to talk to the zealots about how he kicked China in the tariffs, because, man, that was a bold move. You don't just walk up to a sleeping dragon and say, whack, right in their tariffs. You just isn't generally recommended. So, but the reason I could not have this conversation with Trump supporters are because they are so extreme in their views. And it's just toxic to approach them, because a lot of the radicals just are not listening to anything other than successes. And they think if you demonstrate any failures or weaknesses, you immediately become labeled as something other. I'm not going to bring up any of the names you see in social media for the people the extreme right hates, but you become that immediately because you dare point out that the emperor is wearing no clothes. But anyhow, so that's, just pay attention to the lead up here.
Who stopped the pillaging of U.S. intellectual property? Who put serious penalties in place for violating religious freedoms? And finally, who had the guts to call a spade and rightfully point a finger at the CCP for concealing a virus that has crippled our entire world?
Okay, so here's the thing. Point the finger is really what the truth is here, because we're talking about an administration for 4 years who never accepted responsibility for anything negative or damaging, even though, we all know better. So to point finger is absolutely correct. To China, well, I mean, why not? I mean, you already kicked them in the tariffs. You might as well throw this out there, too. I mean, you got other things to worry about at this time, right? Like an election and different things like that.
President Trump.
Silence.
Now do you understand why they hate him so much?
Okay, now we got to be very clear. Who's they? Who's they that hate him? Because I don't know anyone that hates Trump. Okay, and I know a lot of people who dislike his policies, you have to know this. I liked the guy as Apprentice. I loved watching The Apprentice. And I knew people who couldn't stand him then. And I watched every episode, I think, of every season, especially the celebrity ones. That was even more entertaining. When I realized in the beginning, when there were all those Republicans running and he was throwing out things like Lying Ted. Remember those days? He was calling old Ted Cruz Lying Ted just to walk on them and win the nomination. You know, that was fun to watch, but I started to realize I could not talk to my friends about this because people were dividing fast on this guy, more than any of the others that I've been through, any of the presidents I've lived through. And so all of a sudden, next thing you know, people are spin tail crashing, just families are broke. It's crazy. Anyway, so let's continue.
They've been coming after America, coming after you and I for decades.
Okay, so it's very clear that we're making a distinction now between them and then you and I, who we are. Never really clarifies, other than with vague inclinations and different ways of trying to get you to visualize in your head that there's this enemy that we better shoulder up against, I guess. I mean, so it's very extreme propaganda.
And their plan was basically complete. That is, until President Trump got in their way. Right now, we're in a battle for our republic.
Okay, now listen. The music changes. The tone of this narrator changes. Right now, the vision he's presenting is his hair is slicked back. He's looking you right in the eyes. He's got a flag lapel pin. A blue blazer, full bushy beard, and a microphone in front of him. And he's, like I say, looking you right in the eyes with a slick back hair. And because, by gosh, he's got a message to sell you. Notice the music. Notice how it changes to the one that you'd expect to see, cages of puppies and different things, poor children who don't have enough to eat, different things like, those kind of commercials. We've got that music going on. So pay attention.
The enemy is already inside the gates.
Okay, the enemy. So, again, vague. But again, I don't watch this guy. So maybe these followers, these thousands of people who are tuned into this guy already know who the enemy is. Some boogeyman I'm not aware of. So, continuing.
Even those we thought we could trust have turned on us.
Okay, as they say that, they're flashing up Fox News. And a specific news alert says Fox News projects Biden wins Pennsylvania and Nevada, has electoral votes to win presidency. Okay, so it looks like they're referring to when it was announced by Fox News. It's like they're, I guess, alluding that they may have caved, I guess, is the perspective from the radical right.
They're not fighting with guns and bombs, no, but with words, ideas, and narratives.
Okay, so what he just did is looped that back, his whole agenda back into the whole communist manifesto or whatever the scary stuff was at the beginning of the video. Just notice that. That was the whole purpose for this change in tone, this quiet music, this pay attention now, serenity of the conversation.
Because what they're fighting for are our minds.
Our minds. Who?
In 1956, communist leader Khrushchev said, "We will take America without firing a shot. We do not have to invade the U.S. We will destroy you from within."
Very spooky.
I hope you can see now that the invisible enemy is communism, and the most deadly virus is the Chinese Communist Party.
So interesting to note in this video, when they were talking about virus, when he mentioned the word virus, on the screen it went from a violent scene in what I only can assume is China, based on the video. It changed from that to what we all now recognize as a coronavirus cell.
It sneaks into a country through the vices of corrupt politicians, businessmen, and people with power and influence.
So again, he's talking about CCP, this communist intervention of our democracy, and how he's so scared of it. And he's really stirring the emotions with the cadence of the words he's using, and then the very soft music, allowing your mind to kind of expand on some of these ideas as he's saying them.
It rips through cities and towns, bodies and minds. No stone unturned, no soul untouched, and a trail of death and destruction in its wake.
Wow, such florid language.
It sows its seeds by convincing us that lies are truth, evil is good, and hatred is love.
Okay, what I want to point out there is he was using the most basic of human emotions. He's trying to appeal to your emotion by using the most extreme, love and hate. What was it he said here? Let's go back just a little bit, because
vision is unity.
Let's see. So
it sows its seeds by convincing us that lies are truth.
Lies are truth.
Evil
opposite.
Is good.
Evil is good. Hate is love. Right?
Division is unity.
Division is unity. So what he's doing is appealing to the broadest number of people with the most basic approach, so that he can be as persuasive as possible. It's subtle. You don't notice it unless you pay attention. And that's exactly what he's doing. With his cadence, his tone, the music he's got going, the influence. And listen, don't get me wrong, you might even notice some of that in my voice and approach, because I am trying to persuade you. If you're stuck on the idea that this guy's got it right, I am trying to persuade you. So just know that from the beginning. I'm not going to hide any of that or attempt to pretend on that, because I want you to know that I'm spotting this right here in front of you. You get to watch it too if you happen to be into this particular person. Here we go.
And that our enemies are each other. Man versus woman, rich versus poor,
here we go.
Black versus white,
the opposite.
Left versus right.
Absolutely got to throw those in.
It takes root when we feel helpless, afraid, and alone.
Okay, and so with the music combined with the extreme opposites, now there's a picture of an older guy just sadly looking out a bay window, it looks like, from his home in a soft chair. He just stands up, kind of forlornly gazing out his multi-paned window as if there was a better time. Very sepia-colored image as well. Nostalgia is what they're working on here.
It erases our history
and there we go.
Slanders our forefathers.
So I want you to remember back and just kind of think of because the next thing he says is that it erases all that. So I mean, quite extreme, just straight from right where it gets you.
And teaches our children to...
Okay, now going into the kids. Good propaganda will always focus you to the next generation and how it helps or hurts them.
Hate themselves, their
families,
and their country.
Their families and country. That's harsh.
Ridicules our beliefs, undermines our values.
Ridicules our beliefs, undermines our values. Who's our? Now be careful here, because the soft music, we're already a couple minutes in. If you're interested at all, it's probably got you lulled into this false sense of security about how I can't believe anybody would object to this idea. Well, only people who are paying attention. Let's continue.
Values and attacks our way of life.
Right now, they've got Colin Kaepernick takes a knee, and the three 49ers, and it looks like it's rough image of maybe the first time. So keeping that in mind.
even demands that we kneel down in shame.
Okay, now the image is still there. You just heard the words, kneel down in shame. 4 words, 3 people here taking a knee, and you're looking at them, looking at their faces as they do it. And that to me, what's a vulgar comparison that they're making here.
But we will not be ashamed.
We will not be ashamed. Now listen to the background music again. All of a sudden we're riding waves, and that we, all of us.
It can't pull the wool over our eyes anymore.
He's got his finger up. They kind of cut back to Mr. Slick Snake Oil guy here, and he's got his finger up. Yeah, they can't pull the wool over our eyes anymore. Okay. It's very vague. I have no idea what he's talking about. Let's see if it gets clear at all in this short span of time.
Because we know who we are.
We know who we are. Okay, hang on. I want to stop and reflect on that. We know, meaning me. I know who we are. I am. I know who I am. Let me check. Yep, I do. Okay. And the music has really got me feeling it now.
Fought to escape tyranny. We bled to end slavery.
To end slavery. Okay, we bled to end slavery. Interesting.
We revere the brave men who died.
Now I want you to notice, I don't know if any of you have ever been to kind of a charismatic church or kind of a evangelical. That's what I'm thinking of, an evangelical church. Notice that this guy borrows a lot from that, and maybe even a little Zig Ziglar for those who are from the past.
Secure our freedom. We welcome people of all races.
Now they're cutting in a whole bunch of different men and women of different persuasions as he mentions this and as the music swells.
Religions. We love our neighbors. We help the poor.
Okay, he's saying things that sound like they should be true. We love our neighbors. We help the poor. I mean, I don't know how he feels about Mexico. I'm just curious to find out where his position is on the wall, for example, that cost twice as much as the Mars landing.
We cherish our families. We work hard for what we have.
Okay, we do. Or do our workers work hard for what we have?
We unite in times of hardship.
Okay, unless we need a Cancun trip real quick.
We know good from evil.
Okay, how's that? Because I'm not convinced you know good from evil like you put your finger up there.
And truth from lies.
Listen.
We know that our rights don't come from the government, but from God.
Listen to his voice change.
Fight to the death to protect those rights.
Okay, so right now, we just saw a flyover of some jets, and then a gentleman in a field who is clearly patriot has his flag flying high. Very, very patriotic imagery. You see the music is starting. So now we get the feeling that by us and our and we, maybe he means patriots, are people who, are happy to be Americans, I guess, proud to be Americans. And so he's trying to appeal to a lot of people because we all feel, it doesn't matter which side you vote on. We're all Americans, and for the most part, we all feel that way. So pretty general, but appealing. Probably my favorite part of the video so far.
The time ahead is critical. We the people.
Okay, so borrowing a little from the, old documents, we the people of this.
We need to call upon our president to defend us from enemies, foreign and domestic. Oath.
Oh, we're back to the king.
For the time being, we still have free press and free speech.
Okay, very important note. He said for the time being, we have free speech and free press. So there's some conclusion here of foreboding. We'll see what the doom here is, because there's already gloom.
At our fingertips. But if we don't grab hold of them now, we'll
So again, listen to his voice. This guy's a good charlatan.
Lose them forever. Independent, honest media companies like OAN, Newsmax, and the Epoch Times.
So, by promoting these three news outlets as, well, I guess reliable is a red flag for me. Nope, that's not true. And so that undermines the credibility of this guy's, to me, open-mindedness. And if he ever says anything like, well, I watch all outlets, or I pay attention to all news, no, I don't believe this guy. I mean, we all might skim this and that, but very telling.
Will guide us out of the darkness, while mainstream media will only drag us further down. It's time to stop giving them our money, our attention, and our minds. Unlike their Facebook page.
Okay, I would like to point out that the buzzword mainstream media, then the way he's describing it then would indicate that he does not consider himself mainstream media, and yet here he is using what would now be considered these days a mainstream media outlet. Because I mean, there can be some discriminatory difference on that, because maybe you consider it to be the big three or the big eight or however many's out there. I would contend that because more people gather to the web to get their news these days than any other place. Now, granted, they'll probably go to a lot of the main news sources, but to deny that there's alternate news sources that could not be considered mainstream media, I would just contend otherwise. About the cancel thing that's happening, this big outrage by white guys that people don't want to hear them anymore. It's happening. Look, I'm a crusty old white guy. I get the feeling that relics and fossils are outdated. This new generation is tired of us, and I think they don't really care what happens, and they're ready for it just to move on so they can take over. So they're not, and they are the ones that we really need to be paying attention to as far as even our old crusty futures go, because that's just generations. Pay attention, right? And we're all paying attention. We know that's the case. So as far as that goes, I'm with them, though. I don't go ahead and cry some more about the canceling of your voice. I'm tired of hearing you. You don't represent me. Most of the people who are politicians don't represent me. And I've had this argument with people, well, none of them represent you 100%. That's not even what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who think, for example, that the king Trump was of them. That's just, come on, please. Are you from Manhattan High Society? Because unless you are, you're not of that clan. And I'm sorry, but that it's real easy for me then, as someone who's neutral and independent and cover my own butt, to just pay attention to people who actually disagree with that statement, because that's a red flag as well.
Support the countless patriots who've gone through hell and high water to get this information to you.
So I'm not sure. I'm seeing flash after flash of maybe news personalities or public personalities that I don't recognize. I don't follow news necessarily. I don't care who these people are. They don't relate to me. I might see them and catch up on what they're saying, but I don't even know. For example, AOC, I know that those initials, and I still haven't decided that I want to go figure out what the name is, right? Because it's not that important. I'm not even from whatever state, New York, I think, whatever, New Jersey, something like that. Anyway, but it did land on a photo here of Mr. Nunez, who's ranking member of something, and it cuts off there. So whoever he's affiliated with, I would assume these other cut-ins of other people are affiliated, and my assumption is they're all right-wing affiliated is my assumption.
Like their content, subscribe to their channels, share their videos,
he's pleading,
spread their message
for your support. That's desperate.
Stop using Google search.
He's literally specifically commanding his flock away from Google. And make no mistake, right? Anyone who's involved a lot with this guy and his vision or whatever this miracle thing he's doing, they are sheep, and it's very clear. And He's one of the, I guess the golden calves. I don't even know how that works in today's society. I can't keep up with it. That's what I'm trying to do here. So let's see what else he's got to say.
Google is censoring every result and robbing you of your right to know the facts.
So now listen closely. Google is censoring. No, they are not. You cannot be accused of censoring if you are the owner and you didn't even invite this person in. Google owns Google, not the government. So Google makes their rules. If they don't like your content, then that's part of freedom. So the way to, of course, in a litigious society, the way to handle that then, if you feel you've been slighted or harmed in any way by this, is to go after them in court. That's our country. That's how it works. To label this condition as it is, as far as calling it censorship, is a red flag to let me know that that's ignorance personified.
Start using DuckDuckGo and compare them.
I don't know anything about DuckDuckGo. I've seen it. I've seen the logo sparsely. Interesting to see what that means when I investigate.
You'll be shocked.
I guess I'll be shocked.
Get off Twitter.
Oh, wait a second. Okay, so they're scrolling through what looks like some sort of message area. Already you can tell it's slanted. It's all against Biden so far. So that's telling.
And Facebook and
switch to Parler is the recommendation. Okay, this might be an older video. It's recent enough. So it's current events. It's Parler because they were there for a hot minute. But
millions of patriots who have already turned their backs on these toxic companies.
So okay, so when we talk about us versus them, the toxic companies are the ones he's alluding to, I guess, would include Google in his opinion. And I do notice that I'm on this Parler screen grab of his that he's got up here. He's got all of the good ones. Proud Boys, Ted Cruz, Hannity, Carlson, there's Nunes. There's that name again. So yeah. So that was what all those other clips were. Okay, so I'm trying to learn something here. It's pretty hard. There's not much worth learning.
We dare silence our voices.
Dare silence our voices. Listen to the background music again.
The millions of patriots who are standing up, rallying across the country.
Lots of Trump
demanding
flags.
Justice and rejecting communism.
They think that's what they're doing, rejecting communism. But that's just the boogeyman they create to battle today. If it's not communism, it's Antifa. If it's not Antifa, it's Obama. If it's not Obama, it's Biden. They got a boogeyman. They got to have one. These are scared people. These are sheeple. And these are a flock who will be led by what thin veneer of strength they think they see. This emperor, again, has no clothes, but yet they see fine linens and satins or whatever it is they see. I don't even know. Yeah, I don't even have any idea what their emperor's wearing. But I'll tell you what. I'll give it to Trump. He's entertainment. He is. And it's funny to watch the class clown become class president, see what he does with the country. But, you don't expect the crowd to buy into it like they have. You expect that there'll be some reason at some point, because I could tell early on that, I'm looking at a kind of a fired up crowd with all the MAGA stuff, made in China hats that they wear, and, the blue line flags, and, the different, a good array of what you would at such a sensational rally. Somebody is standing here in front of me, arms up, very proud of, whatever. And so it's all right. It's all right to be enthusiastic. I would expect that at the beginning. Towards the middle or end, I would expect some reason and sanity, and the fact that actually folks have dug in is surprising and alarming, and it makes me want to keep the left up. You know what I mean?
Our enemies snuck in during the night.
Okay, these enemies snuck in during the night.
and tried to use the media to lull us to sleep while they
He's onto it. He's got it all figured out.
stole our country.
And they stole your country while they lulled you to sleep.
But instead, they awoke the sleeping giant.
The enemy, them. Oh, there was Obama right there. There's, they got certainly an unflattering picture. And yep, so they're going over their enemy list, and they're flashing true propaganda style only a couple seconds at a time, or less than that, like half a second per each.
Never be able to fool us again.
Then this whole wool over their eyes, very ironic, talking to sheep about sheep. Okay, so this is interesting. I just said cheese, by the way, in Spanish. So as it is, you've got the iconic time when, what's her name? Nancy Pelosi had ripped the whatever it was behind Trump right there, right in the middle of his, whatever the hell he was talking about. I don't even remember, but, it was a big deal to a bunch of people, got them all fired up. And I just am bringing that up because we all kind of remember that incident if we're halfway paying attention. And so this is what what the narrator is talking about as we're viewing that moment.
Tried to trigger a great reset, but instead they triggered a great awakening. We will not look back 5 years from now and tell our children that we did nothing as our nation was stolen.
So as our nation was stolen, what I can tell you is I don't feel the same way. I'm really concerned that people look around and feel that their nation has been stolen. By whom? He's claiming the CCP this time. It's always some other. It's always a boogeyman. This time CCP used to be Iran when I was a kid. I mean, and then it was, Reagan stepping in, tear down that wall. Russia used to be our enemy. Now they're our friend. And, it's just, I don't know. It all changes all the time. So that you really can't hang your hat on that. And the idea that this time they won and they broke through is ridiculous.
We will tell them that we fought for and won our freedom just like our forefathers in 1776. America is the last bastion of freedom in the world.
There are other countries who would disagree. Let's just start with our northern neighbor, Canada. Imagine how captive they are compared to how captive you are in America. Talk to them, in fact. See if they feel the same way.
We are the only remaining threat to the CCP virus. If we fall, the world will fall.
And he said, we are the only stop to the threat, the CCP virus. There it is. There's that mental connection that you would normally miss that brings true propaganda to the forefront. There it is. There's that connection.
But we will not fall.
We will not fall.
It's time to stand with our founding fathers. Okay,
so who would not agree that we want to stand with our founding fathers? What patriotic American would not agree with that, right? So that's, again, we're broadening the net, trying to sweep in some interest here from just about everybody. That's great propaganda. See what else there is to it.
And to invoke the power of we the people and the power of God.
Okay, so he's saying that in addition, our founding fathers said in addition to invoking the idea of we the people, which, again, vague. It's been interpreted so many times, and, sometimes it's free white guys, sometimes it's just men, sometimes, it includes people over 18, sometimes, it's just so it changes. So we the people is that vague, mystifying set of words. And then from God, which is not what our forefathers intended. It's not, there was providence, which was referred to on occasion, but it was more of a, it wasn't a theology. They were deists, so they kind of felt there was an overarching guiding deity, I guess, as deist, but there was not a particular monotheistic or even multi-theistic religion.
We are the patriots.
Okay, again, we are the patriots, and that's how it ends. So here we have a guy who's quite convinced that his standards are everyone else's standards, to the point where
I'm going to level with you.
He's going to level with us. And this type of propaganda is dangerous in our country right now. The good news is the people like me who've been silent, and as the class clown became class president, we watched him stomp through all the, everything and muddle things up. And, it was a situation while he was president that I couldn't even talk to his victories. I couldn't even speak to his victories because people wouldn't accept just that part. I mean, he's either the emperor is wearing clothes or he's not. And I was trying to tell folks, this emperor's wearing no clothes. We still have people who think he's in fine luxury satin and silk and whatever they think he's wearing because they're blinded by the lies. And I've had enough. And not just me. So this is a good thing. I've been silenced and canceled on Facebook for a couple months now. And what that means is there's a side voice, just like the radicals have on Parler and in places like that. There's also a middle of the road movement where we're touching base and going, you know what, it's about time we're starting speaking up. We're not extreme lefties. You don't see me running around, making my own shirts or whatever you think the boogeyman Antifa lefties and stuff are about. Go ahead with your own thoughts on that because you're wrong, but whatever. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, most of us are tired of your extreme radical politics. Your emperor wears no clothes. Admit it. We'll give you a hug and move on with it. But you really wear me out to the point where I'm just going to stay vocal about it. I'm going to press you harder. I'm going to watch you pigeonhole yourself, paint yourself into a corner with lies that don't pan out. Let's go all the way back to the birthers. Let's go back to Jade Helm 15. Wasn't Obama supposed to take all the guns away? Where are the FEMA camps I was promised? We're talking FEMA camps, man. At least I got food, I got water, I got shelter. Oh, man, I was looking forward to the rent reduction. Here we are now. I'm just saying, none of this stuff ever pans out. People were going to say, hey, well, for example, okay, so you get to this argument, and people will say, oh, well, there you go, watching, and then they'll name a left side news outlet, or the opposite. They'll name, all you do is watch, and then they'll name a right-wing news outlet. Well, let's just level the playing field right there and say, nope, we're all very open-minded. We don't lie to each other and say we view all sources like we actually do. Oh, I see them all, and here's what I come up with. Okay, let's just say we all see them all. Let's take a look. Let's say you and I both read something like the National Enquirer. Let's just start with something. Let's say we read everything. All of you and me, we both read everything. We don't miss a beat. We read everything. Okay? Because that's what a lot of you claim. Let's say I'm reading the National Enquirer. I come across the article about this bat boy lives in a cave. 12 years old. No one ever knew he existed. Somewhere over there in the east, north, south area, and it's like, wow, okay. Interesting. And I flip over to the crossword puzzle, finish my lunch, and call it a day. Well, then you have somebody else over here, picks up the National Enquirer, reads a story about Bat Boy living in a cave. Don't find him until he's 12 years old. Nobody ever knew he existed. And that person goes, oh my gosh, Helen and them live over there. I ought to tell them. So that's the difference, okay? It's not what you process, it's how you process the information. What I see is a gullible section of society who believes, or they're late to the party. They don't understand a guy like me who's been checking out the internet since 98. I've seen these things develop. Back in the day, say, in 2005 or so, 2007, somewhere in there, maybe even when Facebook first came out, right, 2007, 2010, you've got this experimental type social media structure that it's real easy to spot charlatans, fakes, tease out, you go to the wrong side of YouTube, stuff like that. And all that was identifiable. What's happening now is we got a large group of people who are just entering without knowing any of this, thinking that this side of the internet's real, that these things are true. They're really wholeheartedly wanting to believe, and then they see something in front of them. Used to be National Enquirer, it only come out once a week, so you finally figure out Bat Boy wasn't real. Okay, crazy Aunt Lucy finally figured that one out. till the next issue. Well, we've got a 24/7 news cycle right now, and so that's why I don't even know how to stop this craziness. I get real tired of people who don't know politics acting like all of a sudden they're just on the hot spot because they Googled something, And so it's really ridiculous, and I'm have been to the point where I've had enough. So anyway, that's the reason for this 5 P's in a Podcast rant today. I'd like to definitely know what you think about this topic and, what other input you might have. And hey, listen, if you have, see any propaganda out there and you need an immediate, I don't know, what would you call it? Just a narrative, an immediate narrative or play-by-play, I would be glad to do that because I do that anyway. So that was one that I saw, and I'd had enough of the propaganda and thought I'd share. Good luck. Take care. Love ya. Hope we all figured all this crap out sooner or later. This 5 P's in a Podcast. I'm Willie Wilson. See you later.